James is eating mackerel with his
Holy
dinner.
mackerel, as
Yep.
the French say.
Oh, and this was a good book. Thrive Foods by Brendan Brazier. And this was a good movie. Good Liar. And I'll go over these books. This is from best to worst. So this book, I was surprised. There's a lot of great recipes, and most of them tofu doesn't belong in. So I'm going to just make them without tofu and make them with something else. And they'll be awesome. And fashionable first courses, I was surprised that there's some good stuff in there. There's a lot of meaty things, but I can monkey with them. Little Taste of Japan had pretty pictures, and the food didn't look interesting to me. Fruit recipes, I did like that they had how to make jams and different canning instructions that were really useful to people. Calcium, I actually made a recipe and it was pretty good, and there's a few things out of there I'm going to read to you, a few passages. Fruit for all seasons, I didn't care for that, and I didn't care for these books that much. Now, some of the recipes did look tasty, but honestly, I expected a lot better. So, how's our meal?
It's pretty good.
I gave myself the better Brussels sprouts out of the ones that I picked, because I gave you more. So maybe you'll have enough that it works out to be the same amount of edible stuff as mine. Anyway, calcium. So I'm going to read a few things from the back. I found this really interesting. So I'm page 177 of calcium. Researchers went to South Africa and to look at the women of the Bantu peoples who consumed on average of only 440 milligrams of calcium per day, and who breastfed on average of 10 children over the course of a lifetime. Conventional thinking might conclude that these women would have serious bone weakness. In actual fact, these women were shown to have very low incidence of osteoporosis. And then they go on, or the author goes on to say, people in Western countries suffer from the highest incidence of osteoporosis. We consume the most calcium as well as the most animal protein. One non-Western population group that suffers from osteoporosis is the Inuit Eskimos. In the early 1970s, researchers discovered that even though the Inuit consumed a diet very high in calcium, 2,000 milligrams per day, principally from animal bones in their fish, and also ate 250 to 400 grams of animal protein daily, their incidence of osteoporosis was very high. So,
I don't know whether it's necessarily calcium. There would be a lot of meat, which causes the body to be acidic.
Yeah, it says to lower your intake of salt and animal protein. Excess protein, particularly from meat, fish, and poultry, and too much salt, particularly from processed food, washes calcium out through the urine. In the case of animal protein, it's understood that animal products contain high amounts of sulfur and phosphorus, which, as well as with salt, has the effect of forcing calcium out of the body from the kidneys and out through the urine. A doubling of protein intake is thought to increase calcium loss by about 50%. The same process applies to children as it does to adults. So, and then I was going to mention page 180. Limit alcohol, cola, coffee, and sugar. For various reasons, these four items are thought to have a negative effect on our body and body's calcium supply. Sugar and caffeine together, as in cola beverages and coffee, is thought to be particularly damaging to bone health.
Yep.
And be cautious with medication. It says corticosteroids, this and that. And so I'm worried about James now with his calcium, because he's having to take
corticosteroid.
for his treatment, right? And yeah,
I don't know if I continue
you're gonna have
to be active.
a lot of work just picking the bones out of that sucker.
This
eh?
is true. Or maybe I should crunch them down.
I don't think so.
Take them out.
I don't know. I guess I should have filleted it before I stuck it in there.
I chew a lot. So
Okay, so
if
you'll
I start
find them.
choking, famous last word.
Yeah, exactly. We'll find out. Now, I fed the birds, so they're especially happy with me. They keep talking to me.
They're saying, keep it up.
Keep it up, they say. But there's so many great recipes in this. I can't wait to try this out. There's, I was looking for recipes for soup, and I ended up finding lots of other things that I want to try. So there's this chocolate chip maple maca ice cream, which I would love to, but I can't have maca powder right now because oh well, yeah, okay, I can do this. I'm gonna try this one out. So it should be good. And well, I have a lot. I have the page 260 turnip masala bookmarked. I'm so gonna make that. I forgot to get turnips, so I'll get turnips at some point. And yeah, there's all sorts of different lentil patties on page 243. A bunch of great dressings. Garlic green peppercorn dressing. Somebody gave me green peppercorns quite a while ago, and I'm like, what do I do with these things? Now I know. I can make this dressing, so that'll be great. I got a bunch of cabbage and have some salad with them, some dressing. And this roasted garlic dressing looks really yum. Pecan and dill pate. I bet that's good. It's on page 196. Cheesy broccoli bowl. That'll be good. But anyway, so I would recommend that one. And it should be easy to find it in the library or whatever. I don't think anybody would have borrowed it from the library for years. Let's see what the published date in that is. 2011. So by the time it gets to you, I don't think it'll be full of culture. So, but those are books that I own. I would have bought them for 10 cents each, I think, from Salvation Army a few years ago. Anyway, do you have anything to talk about, James?
Do you just start riffing about maybe some of the stuff we heard on CBC? Remember any of the garbage?
You hear things on CBC. I wasn't with you. Oh, today you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I've heard anything. Boy, I did a really bad job making your fish.
What?
Well, because you're having to pick out 1,000 little...
It slows a person down.
I don't know how to cook meat. Anyway, I'll talk about this movie, The Good Liar. Now, it did not, it didn't turn out the way I thought it was gonna. It really was a mystery that I didn't solve. It's,
usually you solve it.
Usually I solve them.
Usually I don't. I kind of figured out some of the stuff. More than I usually do. But that didn't spoil that.
I did expect it to be good, because how can you lose with two great actors? And they're in almost every scene together, so...
Yeah, that's right. Don't let other people mess it up.
But I don't know if I need to say more about it. If you like, I don't know, mysteries, spy sort of thing, or whatever, you'll like it.
Yeah, it was kind of like both. Yeah.
It sort of was. Anyway, let's see how my stir-fry kind of pepper is. It's okay. Honestly, it could use more hoisin. Put as much hoisin as I should. But yeah, it's alright. It's different. See, James wanted me to make a stir fry, and I was like, we're gonna be doing a barbecue, why not stuffed peppers as stir fry?
Yeah. I can remember the exact moment.
Oh, you wanted to talk about Teresa Tam.
Teresa Tam.
Well,
What was I going to say about that skit?
I don't know. Probably something about her not being charged with mass murder.
Well, mass manslaughter. I think she's a thoroughgoing incompetent. And I want to stress, like my criticism of her started when I thought she was called Teresa Tams. And there is such a name as Tams. I don't know what nationality it is. But I had absolutely no clue she was Oriental. And what that means is my criticism of her has nothing to do with her race. Absolutely none. She's a thoroughgoing skunk.
Yeah, what I said is, well, you said she should have resigned, and I said she should be cleaning out toilets for the rest of her life in prison. And you said,
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, she's in prison for life.
Yep. She should be in prison for life.
Because honestly,
she's contributed to the death of almost 10,000 people and counting in Canada.
Yeah.
Absolutely shameful. She knew the issues, or she should have known the issues in the World Health Organization. She sits on a board of 7, high up in the ranks of the world. Not the top 3, but she might be in the second echelon. She'd know the issues. The World Health Organization we have with the People's Republic of China, and being in the basically not the pay of them, because countries like the United States that pays for this organization to.
Not lately.
Well, I don't know if they've actually cut funding the way Trump's a yapper. He talks about things.
Yeah, I guess that's true. That might not have actually happened.
And
But anyway,
I want to stress that I was calling for the total defunding. Defund who? A lot of talk about defunding things. Defund who should be totally defunded by any democracies and, frankly, dictatorships.
Well, I think that's what happened, with the George Floyd thing. Is I think really deep down they realize that it's people involved with, like officials involved with COVID, from COVID, that really need to be, like you said, defunded or charged. And so what they did is, what is that? One person's death is a tragedy, and
a million dead. I think it's ascribed at least to Stalin. A million dead is a statistic. One person dead is a tragedy.
Yes, that's how it goes.
Something like that.
I think that's right. So anyway, I think that's what they were doing. So they wanted to try to take the focus away from COVID and the officials that are responsible for the deaths of many, many, many people. But someone had to pay. So it ended up going that way. I think that's what happened.
Anyway, the George Floyd thing is hugely, it's provocatively divisive.
Well, you know, it's interesting they decided to go that way because
There's
it's basically they're campaigning for Trump. So
indirectly. So
Uh-huh.
I was talking to a guy, he's right wing, but not wildly so. Not exactly sitting on the fence, but there'd be people sitting on the fence a little bit to the left of him. And he actually said that, you know, like he does not like Trump. And he's saying, what I've been saying for a long time about any variety of left moves the last little while. That was the thing that's keeping Trump up over 40%. Maybe he's dipped below 40% in the last week or so. He's gone up. But that's, I wouldn't say it's the only thing, but that's one of the things that's keeping him up.
well,
It's just provocative. It's there. Here's one example of. This is Minneapolis, I believe, where there's something like racism. And this little story, incidentally, is for someone I know who was saying to me, mentioning a black woman getting killed it's in the United States, I'm not sure where, in a drug bust or some sort of bust where they got the wrong address. Cops got the wrong address, and the black woman got killed. And this person challenged me, saying, you'd never have the police killing a white woman in the United States. I'm going, I never said anything, but I'm going, wow, that's a silly challenge. And of course, it was an American citizen. This is just one example.
so I really overcooked that fish.
A little bit, I don't mind. Anyway. It's not an American citizen, apparently was an Australian citizen. What
I
was
was
her name?
worried I'd undercook it, so I did it really
Yeah, no,
well.
I'd rather have it over than undercooked. Yeah? Fish.
Basically jerky.
Yeah, that's good. Anyway, her name is Damant or Damant, something like that. Put in a call to the cops. And this is Minneapolis, same place where George Floyd died. And notice I say died. I don't want to slander him.
No.
Anyway, we may find out that he was killed, the autopsy, the only one that people should be taken into account, the first one. That's what cops do. They always take the first evidence. The stuff that comes in later is cooked. It's like the books get cooked when people get a chance to compare notes with other people, stuff like that. Anyway, a woman phones in not a complaint, something like a complaint to the cops, saying that she's worried that she heard a woman screaming. She's afraid that there's a rape going on or something like that. So, is it okay if I chuck this in the garden, or what do you want?
I don't know. It's up to you, I guess.
Anyway. Cops turn up, as per usual, I gather, in the United States. Not here in Canada. There are two cops, right? The United States is significantly more violent than Canada. Canada, I think, is somewhat more violent than England. Great Britain, United Kingdom, that's what it's called. Anyway, they turn up. Now, people are following the George Floyd thing and actually keeping track of stuff instead of following the narrative that's been fed to them, will have noticed that the cops that were fired, the 4 cops that were I'm going to say present at George Floyd's death. Because the only autopsy I trust indicates he died of a drug overdose. And the drugs weren't fed to him, I don't think. I think he took them himself. Anyway, he turned up. I was going to say, you know, like initially I thought it was just 4 white guys who were there, but 2 white guys.
Had you not heard of that white Hmong thing?
Well, there's no guarantee it was white Hmong. There's black Hmong and striped Hmong, and I don't know, maybe other ones. So when I was riffing on that before, I was just doing that for the pun. There was a white, but he's white Hmong. It's actually Hmong. But one guy was half black, or so, half Swiss maybe. And I guess in the United States that counts as blacks, huh? For some crazy reason or other. So, one of the things that struck me was how diverse the police force seemed to have been. And the people who were answering this call about a possible rape or something like that.
I wanted to say from this book, page 75, they did the guy did something called summer pudding, and it's absolutely ridiculous. It's just fruit on toast, basically. It's he says, traditional English summer pudding made from melted berries and juice-soaked bread is delicious, but needs planning to give it time to saturate and set. I mean, that doesn't sound that hard. But so what he did is he put some fruit on toast and he calls it summer pudding. It's ridiculous. And but I did want to say that page 71, that summer fruit curd it would be absolutely delicious. I'm not going to eat it because it would give me a heart attack, I think, instantly. And the Indian pickled eggplant, I will try. I think that'll be yum. So that's on page 45. And I learned something by reading this book. There's these things. They're called pea eggplant. They're just little pea-sized eggplants. And I guess they're sold in Thai stores, it says. And I've never seen them before. But I want to look into growing them. Because whenever I've tried to grow eggplant, it doesn't work out for me. One time I got some eggplant, and it was because I grew a kind that were like smaller eggplants, but it wasn't worth the effort. It never has been worth the effort for me. But maybe if I grow these pea eggplants, they might ripen in time. So that's all I had to say, James. I just wanted to remember, before I remember to say something before I forgot. Oh. Okay, I'm tired.
Anyway, so apparently they've been trying to diversify, and I applaud actually Minneapolis' efforts to try and diversify. I think it's important to have diversified police force. One of the most important things is they should try to diversify, not just in terms of race or nationality, but in terms of or gender, but in terms of
I'll be right back. I'm going to give
being
this
on the
to
political spectrum, right or left. And I worked at the police station. That wasn't my choice. I was parachuted in there. I cut off my hair. And, I basically worked out undercover. No one, I think, actually divined that I was a left-winger. In 2 years or so, I was there. You can recall one cop saying to another, and there were about, I think, 100 people on the police force at that point in time. Hopefully there's a bit more now. Or maybe they should be defunded. Maybe they should be put down. Anyway, seeing that Lethbridge area is the most violent city in Canada per capita.
Well, I mean, the police here, it seems obvious that they're on the take with the drug.
Well, we got to be careful, you know, like.
Okay, well,
I
I
don't
said
know if
it
someone
seems
sued us,
obvious
but,
to me. It seems
there,
obvious. to me.
there seemed to be. I mean, there seemed to be a group of drug dealers that never seem to have to pay the price.
No.
They
Like,
keep on
If
doing
they-
the same
and they're
thing.
so obvious. Like the one guy at 6:30 in the morning.
Playing music loudly.
Yeah, like they've taken. It's kind of a, I don't know, like an 80s throwback. People listening to Ghetto Blasters
Yeah,
and
so we
stuff.
had
So
like
they're
a
listening. I mean,
bit of
back then people didn't have the option of really listening to music any other way. But now they're MP3 players and there's great headphones and stuff. So it's just ridiculous when
Sure.
people listen to.
6:30
You know,
in
it's
the morning.
basically what it's saying. It's an aggressive act when they're listening to music loud, like out
So-
with. And so,
So
anyway,
someone's laying out drugs.
yeah,
6:30 in the morning.
yeah. So
You
he
can
has
hear
his headlight.
inside.
So I mean, it's and yeah,
Well, you know, like it's
And-
just.
I mean,
Doing
it's
it
like a
with
Dickie
impunity.
D. It's like a Dickie D song or something.
Yeah.
He's like wandering around.
I'm in the
with his-
neighborhood.
Yeah,
Come and
exactly.
get your dope.
Come and get your drugs. And so it's so obvious, and with his backpack and stuff like that, right?
So I'm not going to say
It's-
where it was. I don't
no,
want to see
it's
anyone
so obvious around town.
busted.
And
I
they're
just
not
wish
getting
that.
busted, so
I wish they'd
What-
kind of keep it to
what's
themselves,
happening,
not
right?
be in the neighborhood.
yeah.
Anyway, so they're trying for. Apparently, they've been trying for to, spread it around, and I applaud their efforts. At least applaud them trying. I don't know if their efforts been that good. Anyway, they got a hold of this guy from Somalia. And maybe he wasn't ready for the big time. So these cops turn up. The woman comes rushing out of the darkness. The guy who's with us, guy from Somalia, said he was kind of scared or surprised by her turning up out of the dark. He managed to keep his gun from going off. Maybe even he had it holstered. I feel for the Somalian guy because of the sequel. At any rate, he shoots her. He gets shocked and he shoots her. I don't know what he was exposed to in Somalia. Maybe he was suffering from PTSD or something like that. Now, here's where I have a problem. Where maybe Minneapolis showed the court system. I don't know if it was jury trial or trial by judge. But he was convicted, as he should have been, for manslaughter. But apparently he was also, you got to be careful, get this off of the internet, might have been made up. Apparently he's convicted for second-degree murder. Absolutely
yeah, that's ridiculous.
not.
Yeah.
There's got to be some sort of intention. The guy didn't. The guy had, so he would have been black, right? And so that looks to me, especially if it were minor, like a case of racism. So here's what I suggest to black